Hello everyone. You are watching the channel THINKONOMICS Study with Nabarun for the subject Economic Application. In this channel, I will try to go through the concepts of economic application, especially for the students of class 10 who will be appearing for the board within few months. I will try to clear the concepts of economics and economic application, the probable questions which can come in your ICSE exam based on my previous experience. Boys and girls, those who will be watching this video or those who are watching this video at present, when I was talking about my experience, you must be wondering, who am I? So, in this video at least, I will try to brief a little bit about myself. I am Navarun Mandal from Kolkata. I have done my MSc in economics with the special paper econometrics in the year 1998 from Kolkata University, and have completed my B.Ed from Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose College in the year 2000. I am teaching economics and economic application for the boys and girls of class 9, 10, 11, and 12 for the last 20 years. Presently, I am the senior subject master of economics in one of the renowned boarding school of India, that is St. Paul School, Darjeeling. I'm working here for the last 15 years. What I found after teaching so many years, that the boys do have some problem in understanding the concept of economics as the subject is new to them, especially for the boarders, those who study in the residential school in the hills. During the time of winter vacation, just before your board exam, if you have any problem, then it becomes difficult for you to make your concept clear. So I thought, why not to give a try? If the boys and the girls have given me what I am today, it is my time to give it back to my students. I'm not a professional, so I will just give a try as much as possible to make you understand the subject economics. I will start today with the chapter demand. In the chapter demand, what I can see in your syllabus, it is given demand and demand schedule and demand curve to be explained first, then different types of demands, then exceptions to demand, law of demand. So all these things we will do slowly, slowly. So let me first start with what do we mean by demand? Or if I want to start, let me start first with why do we demand goods? Boys and girls, we demand good because the goods and commodities and even the services satisfies our utility. We demand food at 1 o'clock, at 1 p.m. All right. Why? Because we are hungry. The food will give us the satisfaction, will give us the utility. But does it mean that all the wants will be termed as demand? Or all our desires will be termed as demand? The answer is no. There is a difference between want and demand. In case of demand, boys and girls, we must have the purchasing power to purchase the commodity. Then only your desire will become the demand. Let me give you an example. I want to buy a BMW. All right, huge cost, 15, 20 lakhs. I'm a school teacher. So I want to buy. But do I have that money to buy that? The answer is no, I do not have. So that is my desire. That is my desire to purchase the BMW because I do not have the purchasing power. But suppose if I want to buy a Alto, all right, I want to buy a Alto whose cost is 5, 6 lakhs. Now I have the money of 5 to 6 lakh rupees to purchase the Alto. All right. So here the desire for the Alto is backed by the purchasing power. I have the money to purchase. I have the purchasing power to purchase. So this will be termed as demand. So the main difference between the desire and demand is that desire do not have the purchasing power, whereas the demand is always backed by the purchasing power. In case of desire, my desire cannot be communicated to the sellers because I do not have the money. But in case of demand, as I have the purchasing power, my demand is communicated to the sellers. This is the second difference. This is one of the important question for your board exam. The difference between desire and demand. Generally 2 marks question, and you know that in board exam for 2 marks question we have to give two differences. Now coming to the next concept of demand is the different types of demand. Income demand, joint demand, cross demand, composite demand, direct demand, derived demand, accent demand, exposed demand. These are the different types of demand which we know. Let me discuss these different types of demand one by one. First of all, the income demand. What is income demand? My dear boys and girls, here income demand, it implies that when the demand of a commodity depends only on the income of the consumer. All right, please keep it in mind. I am saying that if the demand depends only on the income, no other factors, we are assuming that there will be no other factors which affect the demand. The demand depends only on the money income, then it will be termed as income demand. Now income demand, boys and girls, we have to understand that for normal good, for normal good, if the income increases, then the demand for that commodity increases. It is directly related. For which type of good? For the normal good, which we use in our daily life. But what about the inferior good? In case of inferior good, boys and girls, if the income of the consumer increases, then in that case, the demand for the commodity will decrease. Because now the people will shift from the inferior good to the superior or to the normal good. That is why, if the income increases, then the demand for the inferior good will increase. Please keep it in mind. Important question. ICSE they gives you the question, the differentiate between the inferior good and the given good. Given good we will discuss later on. All right, later on we will discuss. So for the inferior good, you have to keep it in mind that for inferior good, that if the income of the consumer increases, then the demand for that commodity will decrease. So there is a inverse relationship between the income of the consumer and the demand for that commodity, boys and girls. Please keep it in mind. All right. So we'll have a negatively sloped demand curve when we are measuring income on the y-axis and the quantity demand on the x-axis. We will get a negatively sloped demand curve. But you have to be very much careful regarding what you are measuring in which axis. In y-axis, what we are measuring? The income of the consumer. And in the x-axis, what we are measuring? We are measuring the quantity demanded by the consumer. All right. So this is the first one, that is called the income demand. Now coming to the cross demand, another important concept. So before coming to the cross demand, boys and girls, we can classify the goods in two ways: substitute goods and also complementary goods. Substitute goods are those goods which in that case one good can be used in place of the others. For example, tea and coffee. I'm from Darjeeling, so we drink lots of tea. All right. But suppose if the price of tea increases, what will the people of Darjeeling do? Or what we will do? Definitely, we will reduce the consumption of tea and we will go to consume more of coffee. Now, coffee becomes much more attractive in place of tea. All right. So, this tea and coffee, they are substitute to each other. I'll ask you if you can give more example in your surroundings which are substitute to each other. Cricket or football, you can say. If you like cricket, you can play cricket or you can play football. If the school gives you the term, if the school gives you the scope. Suppose you seek subject, what you are doing. Okay. Either you can take economic application or you can take computer application. So in this case, economic application is a substitute for the computer application. All right. We have to remember that in case of the substitute good, if the price of one good increases, then the demand for the other good will increase. All right. They have the positive relation. If the price of tea increases, then the demand for coffee is increasing. Just in the reverse way, if the price of the tea is decreasing, then in that case, then the demand for coffee will decrease. Now, there are other types of goods also. As I said, complementary goods. Complementary goods are those goods which are used together, all right, which are used together. For example, car and petrol. To drive a car, what you need? You cannot drive it with the water. You need petrol, or you may need diesel also. So in this case, this petrol and the petrol driven car, they are complementary to each other. In this case, what will happen if the price increases of one of these commodity? If the price of petrol increases, you must have observed, then the demand for the petrol driven car will decrease. Inverse relationship. In case of substitute good, what we said? They have the positive relation. If the price of one good increases, then the demand for the substitute good increases. But in case of complementary goods, if the price of one of the complementary goods increases, then the demand for the other complementary goods will decrease. So there is an inverse relationship in case of the complementary goods. We have to understand this difference. That is the substitute good at the complementary goods. So ultimately, what is cross demand? I have started from the cross demands. In case of cross demand, if the demand of one commodity depends on the price of the other commodity, then it is called the cross demand. All right, then it is called the cross demand. I repeat, if the demand of one commodity depends on the price of the other commodity, all right, then it will be termed as cross demand. Cross demand can be of two types. For substitute good, it will be positive, and for the complementary goods, it will be negative. Please keep it in mind again and again. They gives us a question. All right. Small question. What is the value of the cross elasticity of demand for the substitute good? What is the value of the cross elasticity of demand for the complementary goods? Question comes in the board exam. In board, they also give it to you. Give two examples of the substitute good. Give one pair, okay? Give the example of a pair of goods which are substitute. Sometimes they give the example of a pair of goods which are complementary to each other. A small question. If you know, it's very easy. All right. So yeah, you have to put more importance. You can say, all right, the value of the cross elasticity of demand for the substitute good and for the complementary goods. And when you are putting stress on this, okay, you must also know the example of the substitute good and that of the complementary good for your board exam. Now coming to the joint demand. Joint demand basically when the complementary goods, all right, just now I taught you the complementary goods. So when the complementary goods are demanded together at one time, when both the goods are demanded together at one time, as I said it to you, petrol or petrol driven car, if both are demanded together at a time, then it will be termed as the joint good. All right, joint demand, sorry, this is joint demand. Or maybe gun and bullet, butter and bread, breakfast in a boarding school. Our boys, they have most of the time they're given the bread and butter, because without butter you cannot have the bread in the morning. So bread and butter, guns and bullets, petrol and petrol driven car, all these are joint demand because we are demanding the complementary goods together at one point of time. It's called joint demand. Question comes again. You can check what do you mean by joint demand and give two examples of the joint demand. So boys, we have to know the definition of the joint demand and the two examples which I have given it to you. Sometimes they give it to you the question of in the ICSE what I saw, that differentiate between the joint demand and the composite demand. Joint demand and composite demand. So I have already explained to you what is joint demand. Now coming to the composite demand. What is composite demand? Sometimes a good has many alternative uses. You can use it for many purposes. So in that case, In that case, the demand for that commodity will be termed as composite demand. For example, the electricity, it is used to switch on the heater, all right, the blower in Darjeeling, or maybe the AC fan or the AC in the planes. It is used for the washing machine. It is used to run the train. It is used for ironing your clothes. So many things. It can be used for so many things. It has so many alternative uses. So this type of commodity which has many alternative uses, the demand for those commodities will be termed as composite demand. So the difference between the joint demand and the composite demand, two different counsel they ask. I am saying it to you again and again. All right. So first of all, the definition of joint demand we will give. Okay, make the table. Give the definition uh, of the joint demand, and in this case, the composite demand, and then give at least two examples for both. You will get the full marks for this. Okay, one more difference it comes in the exam. Differentiate between direct demand and derived demands. So, what is direct demand? The goods which we are demanding for the final consumption, which are ready to be used, the goods which we are consuming directly because it gives us a utility. It is termed as direct demand. Apple, to be healthy, you eat apple. To be strong, you drink milk. These are direct demand. All right, these are direct demand. Suppose the laptop which I am using to do this lecture, the demand for this laptop is direct demand because I need it for my lesson. We have a contact with my friends. So this is direct demand. But the demand for the factors of production, factors of production, you must have studied in the class 9. Four factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. These are the four factors of production. So the demand for the labor is a derived demand because we cannot consume labor directly. But why we demand labor? Because labor will help us to make the laptop which I am using to give the lecture, or which I am using to have the contact with my friends. All right. This is derived demand. So demand for the factors of production generally is a derived demand, whereas the demand for the final goods which are ready for the final consumption will be termed as direct demand. Boys and girls, if you are finding my lectures helping you, I will ask you to subscribe my channel and help your friends by sharing the link with them so that they can also take the benefit of my lecture. So now, coming to the next difference they give, already I have said it to you, but the name is different. As I am having a different name, you also, those who are watching, you must also be having at least two, three names. So in the same way, now in the board they give you the difference between the XN demand, differentiate between XN demand and exposed demand. It's just the name has been changed. XN demand is nothing, but XN demand is just the desire. It's just the desire for the commodity. All right. It's not backed by the purchasing power. It cannot be communicated to the sellers because the consumer do not have the money income. But in case of exposed demand, In case of exposed demand, the consumer has the purchasing power to consume the commodity. All right. So in this case, as he has the purchasing power, it is his effective demand. All right. It is his effective demand. And this demand will be communicated to the sellers. Will be communicated to the sellers. This is known as exposed demand. So two difference. All right. Extend demand and exposed demand. One example. The other, first one is the must be the definition of both, and the second one must be your example. All right, this must be there. Next, the factors determining the demand. What are the factors which determine the demand of a commodity? The first and the foremost factor which determine the demand for a commodity, is the price of the commodity. All right, the price of the commodity. You can always just found out. You don't have to read the book for this. You also know that if the price of the commodity increases, what you will do. Just think what you will do. You will definitely purchase less, provided, provided your income remains the same, provided your taste and preference for the commodity does not change. So the first factor which determine the demand for a commodity is the price of the commodity. All right, for a normal good, again I am mentioning it is not for the given good. Please keep it in mind that for a normal good, if the price of the commodity increases, then the demand for that commodity will decrease. All right, there is an inverse relationship, provided the other factors remains the same. Second one, second factor, income of the consumer. Already I said it to you. For normal good, again, we have to mention what type of good. Okay, for normal good, if the income of the consumer increases, then the demand for that good will increase. You will just see it. You can just you have done this by yourself. Your parents have done this by. Okay, you must have watched when your parents wants to buy. Okay, their income increases. You will see that they generally buy little bit more things. All right, for the normal goods. But for the inferior good, what happens? For the inferior goods, if the income increases, people try to show off that they do not bring. So, okay, we are not the poor people. We will not buy this inferior good. Okay, we will buy something better. So, in case of inferior good, what happens? Uh, if the income increases, then the demand for that commodity will also. What will happen? Demand for that commodity will decrease. Yes. For the inferior good, if the income increases, then the demand for that commodity will decrease. But in case of the normal goods, if the income of the consumer increases, then the demand for that commodity will increase. Okay. So this, the second factor which affects the demand for the commodity is the income of the consumer. The third one, the price of the related commodities. Now, what are the related commodities? We already said, I have discussed. The goods are related to each other, either being the substitute or being the complementary. But in case of substitute, what I said, that if the price of one of the substitute increases, then the demand for the other substitute will increase. Example of tea and coffee, I been to that if the price of tea increases, in that case, what will happen to the demand for coffee? Huh? Think. Demand for coffee will increase. Yes, the demand for coffee will increase. So there is a positive relation, all right, in case of the substitute good. But in case of complementary goods, goods are also related because we use them together. They are called the complementary goods. In case of complementary goods, the price of one of the complementary goods increases, then the demand for the other complementary good will decrease. Yes, the price of petrol increases, then the demand for the petrol driven car will what? Decrease. Yes, it will decrease. All Then we can talk about the other factor like test and preference. If you develop test and preference for a commodity, all right, if you develop a test and preference for the commodity, what will happen? You will demand more and more of that commodity, isn't it? If you develop a test for, suppose, uh, Milky Bar, all right, the chocolate, even if your income is not increasing, all right, price is remaining the same, what you will do? You will buy more and more of the Milky Bar in place of the dairy milk. All right, because you have developed a taste and preference for the Milky Bar, so you will purchase more and more of the Milky Bar. Though the price has not changed or your income has also not increased, but you are liking it. You are liking it. So you will buy more and more of the Milky Bar, maybe by reducing the consumption of the other commodity. So the another factor which affect the demand for the commodity is what? Taste and preference. So, okay, last one more point I'll say, that is your price expectation. If we expect that the price of the good will increase in the near future, what we'll do? We will consume more and more of that commodity now. So the demand will increase at present. Just in the opposite way, if you expect that in the near future the price of the commodity will decrease, what we'll do? We'll just wait. Now the price is high. Let us wait for some time. Maybe some days, maybe 1 or 2 months. Price will come down, we will buy at that time. So if you expect that in the near future the price of the commodity will decrease, all right, you will consume less now. So the factors which determine the demand for the commodities are: number one, price of the commodity; number two, income of the consumer; number three, what is number three? Price of the related good; number four, taste and preference; number five, price expectations. All right, at least these five, there are many other factors which determine the demand for a commodity, but at least these five, they are important. Okay, these five factors, they affect the demand of a commodity. So, boys and girls, today I will finish off my lesson here. All right, so 30 minutes of lecture. Please go through it, and if you like it, please subscribe, and please give the link to your friends or relatives so that they can also take the benefit from the lecture. Then only it will be a success for me trying to reach out as many students as possible. Thank you very much for being with Thinkonomics Study with Novel. Have a good day. God bless all of you. Think economics, talk economics, sleep with economics, and share your knowledge of economics with the other. Thank you.